Hello and welcome back to the Stronghold. It's that time again. It's midweek, and I want you to play some Magic so that you can win 2 free rare or better ICRs. This week's midweek Magic is What Was Written, which is kind of the new historic concept that Arena seems to be playing around that will be defined as an eternal format of all the once standard legal cards that were released with Ravnica block and beyond. This is, I think, the leading format that they're experimenting with right now, and the one that is most likely to end up being our eternal format on Arena, at least until they get to a point where maybe something like Pioneer becomes more of a possibility. So with that, we have a very interesting, somewhat staple deck to talk about for Historic today, and I hope you'll stick around and see all about it. This may not be a deck for you, but it is at the very least one you are going to need to be aware of so that you can play against it on occasion. But before we get into all that, my crack research team has recently pointed out that we are the only channel doing consistent and timely midweek Magic content. And by crack team, of course, I mean one comment from someone who had nothing at all to do with this monkey image. So be sure to subscribe right here at the Planeswalker Stronghold for all of your future midweek Magic needs, because we will be bringing you a deck list or strategy every single week. Now, what were we talking about this week? Oh, yeah, right. Today we're going to be talking about one of the historic decks that, while not a staple in the historic meta, is definitely one of those decks that you are going to see often enough that at the very least you're going to want to understand it. And depending upon the kind of player you are, this might be a deck that you want to play yourself. We, of course, are talking about the Historic Hammer. Go ahead and pull this up here, and let's take a look at the deck. This particular build is using the red-white Boros combination, mostly so we can use a lot of our standard cards in Historic to play an effective deck. The more traditional version of this that you'll also see in Historic is a blue-white version. But the main premise is still the same. The idea here is to put something out on turn 1 that is either unblockable in the blue case, or difficult to block, or maybe something you don't want to block as your 1-drop. And then from there on your 2-drop, you want to play the core Blade Master. And then on turn 3, you want to drop Colossus Hammer. Now, for those of you not terribly familiar with this, equipped creature gets +10/+10 and loses flying. Its equipped cost is 8, which makes it difficult. But on turn 3, you can use 1 mana to play Colossus Hammer, and then a 2nd mana to play Resolute Strike at instant speed. Target creature gets +10/+10 until end of turn. And of course, if it's a warrior, you may attach an equipment you control to it. So in this case, with something like the Moth Rider Patrol, you want to get to the declare blockers phase where they are not able to declare blockers and manually put a stop in. So once they have passed priority and acknowledge that there is not a blocker, or that they're not making a blocker, or using a blocker, I guess I should say, then you use your Resolute Strike at instant speed to give your Moth Patrol +12/+12, making it a 13/13 double strike, and win the game on turn 3. So that's the basic combo. Everything else we have here is some ways to use that in different manners. And as you can see, in this particular version of the deck, I am running a single copy of Colossus Hammer because I think this is worth a wild card to add to your collection. To be all in on this style of deck, of course, you want to be running 4 copies of Colossus Hammer. But that's not a wildcard investment that is going to be a good decision for everyone. This has got to be a deck that you enjoy playing and you see yourself playing for some time, because honestly, you're not going to use this card anywhere else except for maybe in the Brawl version of this same deck concept. From there, we've got some other different enablers like Boots of Speed, your Rabbit Battery from the current Kamigawa set. Another card that I recommend using a wild card for and adding to your collection is Shadowsphere. This gives +1/+1 trample and lifelink to the creature. This is one of those awesome colorless cards that you will use in a number of decks, much the way we think of Solemn Simulacrum. This is also particularly nice in your mono white life gain because you give your oh goodness, what's the name? The alchemy only cleric that's a 2-drop, and it gets +1/+1 counter every time you gain life. By putting the Shadowsphere on it, it gains lifelink and trample, so it becomes its own proc to get bigger every single turn. From there, we've added some additional cards like Dancing Sword from your new player experience, giving you a nice creature or equipment option. Of course, we talked about the role of the core Blade Master. Fighter class is also a nice rare if you have it, to allow you to search up one of those equipment cards, because as you can see, we're running a lot of one-of equipments in this deck, and fighter class effectively becomes the second copy of any or all of those equipments. And of course, it makes your equipments just a little bit better as time goes on and you're able to feed more mana into this. Relic Axe is that Warriors Matter equipment, and I'm running 3 copies here because of course this is a Warriors deck, and this is functionally the slot that I would take away if I was running all 4 copies of Colossus Hammer. From here, we've got Mauld Skyclay, because I know you own this card and it's pretty darn good. You get +2/+2 flying and first strike, regardless of whether it's a warrior or not. Kazal's Fury is a nice little fling type card. So if you've got your Fire Blade Charger, he swings as a, I don't know, 13/13 ridiculousness, but he gets blocked and he doesn't have trample. Then you can fling him for the wonderful price of only 3 mana. It's going to deal 3 damage to a target, and then because Fireblade Charger died because of it being sacrificed, it's going to do that 13 damage again. So it's a backdoor, oops, I won the game, potentially on turn 4 once again. Let's see, Kargan War Leader. This is your Warrior Lord that just got better in all of your alchemy-based ideas, with having the ward and giving ward to all your other dudes, which is going to help protect your core Blade Master, because believe me, as soon as this comes out, she is going to have a target on her back. Forging the Sword lets you create tokens and then search up Havilar, which we haven't gotten to yet, but is in the deck as well, or as well as an equipment instead. And this is basically another toolbox fetch component for all of your one-of artifacts that are out there. Whichever one solves the problem, wins the game, etc., etc. That's the one you go get. And as we said, Havilar is in there, and whether you run that as the sword, giving +2 and vigilance, or you're running the god himself and giving all of your creatures double strike, he's pretty darn cool. Icing Death, another card from your new player experience, as well as Starheim Unleashed from your new player experience. We're running 2 copies of Brunor Battlehammer because, well, he's awesome with equipment-based decks. And again, I know you have this card because you got 2 copies in your new player experience, and he just got a boost from the Alchemy rebalancing. We are running our ubiquitous Solomon Simulacrum because he's a 2/2 that lets you ramp and lets you draw a card. He's awesome and he goes in every deck. From there, the mana base is pretty simple. We're running 11 plains, 6 mountains, 2 copies of Alpine Meadow. I really don't think you need 4 here because remember, early on, you really want to be able to play those lands untapped. It's not until turn 3 that I would really feel comfortable bringing a land in a tapped position, so we don't want to be overflowing with the meadows. We are playing the Axgard Armory as another way to search up an equipment. That's right, you've got 3 search cards here for a budget deck. Only one of them is rare, and frankly, if you don't have fighter class, you don't have fighter class. It's not that big a deal. We're playing the color appropriate pathway and of course Fabled Passage as the only rare land wildcard that you need for the season, because just like Solomon Simulacrum and now Shadowsphere, it fits in any deck that you build pretty nicely. So there's the deck, guys. I hope that you have as much fun playing this. And if you find that you really do enjoy it, certainly consider spending an additional 3 wildcards for your additional copies of Colossus Hammer. But again, be warned, that is not a card that you will probably play in any deck other than this cheaty style equipment-based deck.
What's that? You didn't catch all that? Well, Matt would like you to know that any deck list applicable to this video can be found down in the doobly-doo. And hey, let's not forget, the whole reason to participate in these totally free midweek Magic events is the prize support is awesome. You get a rare for your first and second win, and then you get a random cosmetic for your third. How awesome is that? Alright, so with all that having been said, don't forget, smash the like button like Hulk would. And of course, comment and subscribe if you haven't done so already. And one last thing, myself, I'm coming to you from America, and I have noticed that about 1/3 of my viewership is coming from the US, and about 1/3 is coming from various countries. And there's about 1/3 of my viewership that is just getting lumped into other. So to let me know you got to the end of the video, throw me a comment down in there and let me know where you are watching from.